Welcome to the People's Revolution podcast. This is a space where we share stories from activists around the world. We hope that these stories inspire you to act locally as we share globally.
I don't have a problem with you. This generation, look around, there's nothing left to do. Liberation, take one final step and then you'll see the complication. System don't belong to you or me.
Welcome to the People's Revolution podcast. Today we have Quit It. So, born in the midst of the pandemic, Quit It rises from the Canadian touring mainstays Riverjacks. Quit It emerges focused and determined, with all members contributing lyrics and vocals to a punk rock narrative of critical analysis, accountability, and hope. Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Hey, how's it going?
And so we would love to start with some introductions, starting with you, Spencer.
Hi, my name's Spencer Joe, and I play guitar and sing in Quit It.
Awesome.
Hi, Mikey Blotto. I play drums and also sing in Quit It.
Perfect.
Hey, I'm Tyler. I play bass in Quit It.
Awesome. Lovely to meet you guys. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So I just want to jump right in and talk about what inspired Quit It. Where did it come from? You guys were previously Riverjacks. What's the difference? I don't know who wants to start. Maybe Spencer?
Sure. I think a big part of it was the world changing around us. Mm-hmm. And we had been working about 8 years in Riverjacks, and the band had evolved a few times from its inception already. And around the time of the pandemic and Black Lives Matter movements really heading up and becoming quite a widespread phenomenon. And we also were going through another big change in the band where we were much more coordinated, thinking socially and politically, and more members of the band started writing. So we also had a membership change-up. We no longer play with our accordion player anymore, and that was a big part of the Riverjacks identity, right?
Oh, okay.
So we took it all kind of as a cue to start up something new and call it something different.
Mm-hmm. And you guys, when you kind of wrapped up Riverjacks, you guys had some kind of merch sale for the Dope Team, is that correct? Dope Team and Bear Clan?
Yeah, we've done a few funding drives, so kind of in coordination with Bandcamp Friday, because it just was a good way to help put as much as we could towards a good cause. First, we helped with the Pekawewin
Yes.
camp in Edmonton. There's some funding up there so they could get what they needed for supplies. And then the next month we did, what was the second one?
Dope Team.
Dope Team.
Dope. Right, it was just
Team,
yeah.
From the Alpha House, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those are such important initiatives. Like, the Dope Team deserves so much more funding than they currently get. And it's just super unfortunate that the camp was closed down.
It is, yeah.
Absolutely, and you see them closing them down across the country in times of dire need and low housing, right? Seems like a coordinated attempt, but these are some of the organizations that we worked with for our merch clear out sale or whatever were ones that we had worked with previously. For benefit shows, like the Palomino in Calgary does an annual Alpha House sock hop. So we always felt pretty good about jumping on benefit shows when we can, when they presented themselves. But I think that our drive to really initiate that kind of thing is more of a recent phenomenon within our group. We needed to move some merch, and we needed to clear it out, and we wanted it to be accessible and we thought
Affordable.
that donating half the proceeds would be an apt solution.
Definitely. And so you guys had a show booked with Dickens. Was it for the Bear Clan? But then because of the pandemic, it had to be canceled?
That's right. Put on hold. We're gonna keep all that. We had a couple of friends bands booked, and our chosen charity was Bear Clan. So as soon as we can start doing shows again and we can make our live debut, of course we're gonna have to practice up because we haven't seen each other physically in however many. We haven't all been in the same room since we recorded in July. But as soon as everything starts coming around, whenever that may be, we're gonna do that show. So.
So, yeah, I guess I actually forgot to mention at the beginning that your self-titled EP came out on December 11th.
That's right.
So that is probably what the show at Dickens was for, right? For that.
That would have been it. Yeah. The vinyl would not have arrived at that point. But that's it. We just wanted, and it was our live debut. It was going to be the first time we were on a stage together as Quit It. But we're okay with waiting for the time to be right for that.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's the attitude of 2020, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
And so before we talk about the songs on your EP, I want to kind of talk about the activism behind your band. And then also I would like to hear about your activism personally. So if there's one of you that would like to start the conversation about what is the activism behind Quit It, like what happened this year to radicalize you guys or change you guys. Or if you're more comfortable, if someone wants to just share their personal activism experience first, just hop on in there.
I think that I think we've all always been very socially aware and always tried to be progressive individuals, and that's one of the things that's part of our friendship, really. But with the pandemic and the death of George Floyd, it definitely catapulted us into that conversation deeper. And I think that's part of what drove us to kind of have that background with the band, and another part of the change of it all, right? Of us switching up our sort of agenda and trying to be more proactive and socially conscious with our lyrics.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Mikey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the power shift too in Alberta lent a lot to it as well. When the UCP took the throne, as it were, and they rolled out their first budget. I mean, I wrote a song about it, and it's these big sociological phenomenons like conservative kind of economics marginalizing people, austerity, putting the burden of deficit on the backs of vulnerable people, and all these other sociological phenomenons that happened this year, BLM stuff, and COVID really highlighting inequalities. I think it really led to us individually examining ourselves and the way we live our lives and the privilege that we hold as male presenting white folks in Alberta, one of the most prosperous provinces and the most prosperous countries in the world. I think I would go as far as to say, if everything that's been happening in the world this year hasn't radicalized you, then you need to take a hard look at yourself. Democracy is not going to work if people aren't living their lives with meaning, especially in the phase the late stage capitalism, the corporate sort of feudalism that we're kind of working in, that whole economic system is working against democracy. So if the people aren't living their lives in a way that identifies with their beliefs, then they're not contributing like they should be, like it's their duty to, right? So I think that I think we have to. At this point, we all felt a compunction to do more, and like we haven't been doing enough.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, to hop on your comment there, Spenny. Like, for the past 2 years, I think I've been trying to, like, I've been like feeling like kind of guilty about even playing in bands, where I'm like,
Sure.
I'm spending my time doing something that doesn't really contribute to a cause that I want to contribute to, right? And so going through all that, and then COVID hit, we're all forced to kind of just stop and kind of like watch whatever's going on the TV, and then the video of George Floyd comes on, and like after that, I was just like, okay, like something has to be done. Like I got to be doing something. Like now, I got to be active and out there, right? Like hard as it is being trapped inside from COVID and stuff like that. It was like, what can I do? And it was like a compromise of like, okay, I'm in a band. I love playing music. It's what I want to, like, I'm supposed to do. And compromise, like, how can I make this work with that work? And like, when we started doing, like, donating all of our, or like, half of our merch sales to the Dope team and Pick a Waylon, and that's what I was like, yeah, like that's what I want to do. Like, that's the nice thing about being in a band. And if you're, socially aware with all your bandmates, it's like super easy to just be like, all right, let's do this. Like, let's make something more than just music, right?
I think there's a lot of meaning that we can derive from our stations in life. When Tyler said he felt a little bit guilty about being in a band, it's so true that like a lot of people don't have the opportunity that we've had our whole lives, right? I had guitar lessons when I was a kid, kind of stuff. Dad bought me my first guitar, kind of thing. But I think there's a lot to be said about our platform, and we probably still don't fully realize the power of that platform, the communication that we can be doing, and the truth of our audience is that it's largely people like us. And so we're speaking to those people.
Mm-hmm.
And people like us need to shape the fuck up.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, punks care a lot, but getting punks to do stuff. And I mean that with all the love in the world.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't, like, people look at activism like a flip's got a switch and you're going to be wearing a bandana and carrying Molotov cocktails, and all of a sudden you're in this world of social upheaval. But it's not that way. And it can't be that way because that's just not really sustainable for most people. But to me, activism just means living your life in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. You believe something, then you better fucking act like it. And that goes as far as, like, I mean, that can start with recycling, composting. You can stop supporting corporations like Amazon if you think they're evil. That's all really important stuff that everybody should be doing if they believe in it. And then, how you spend your time is what it all boils down to.
Definitely. Most definitely. Like, if you notice the problem, I think that you are socially responsible to at least attempt to fix it or bring it to the attention of someone that could fix it.
Absolutely. In the world of, like, worldwide connection, internet, all that, like, ignorance is less of an excuse than it ever has been, and it's actually never been an excuse.
It's true.
It's almost like a crutch now.
Yeah, it's a cop out, and it's just like, I just don't think people get away with it anymore, you know?
No, and especially with the way social media has everyone connected, and like you said, like we have the capacity to be doing different things like fundraisers, raising awareness, talking about things, and taking on simple initiatives like recycling. Like every little bit counts. Well, now I'd like to dive into your EP, your songs. I'd like to pull them apart a little bit, if that's cool with you guys.
Sure.
So
Go first. We'll be vulnerable. Go easy.
So your EP has 4 songs.
That's right.
And then the song that you guys said had the least activism in it, the writer of that song is not with us this evening.
That's right.
So Barfly. But I just want to point out, even though he's not here, like the lyric that spoke to me the most is all it took was a pandemic to highlight the systemic. And I think that's really important because our pandemic showed us that our system does not support us unless people are buying useless things. Is there any other point on that you guys want to speak on, even though you did not write it?
Well, we picked the 4 songs that we did for the EP because of their timeliness. So even though we said that the song Barfly was maybe the least political of the songs, that's kind of saying like Michelangelo is the least ninja of the Ninja Turtles. You know?
Yes.
So maybe he's like not the best ninja, but he's still a ninja. Right? So yeah, I mean, little personal reflections like that about the world are, at this point, there are bread and butter, and they can't not seep into our music, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So just because the writer of that song is not here, who wrote "Let It Burn"?
That would be my song.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that was I started writing that song at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, and then really was forced to take a different direction with it when George Floyd died. And I really thought of that image of the precinct burning. Where was that, in Philadelphia?
I think so.
I can't remember.
No, I
Quite
think
striking.
Philadelphia. But don't quote me on that.
Yeah, it's just, I guess the thesis of the song is kind of like, the world's changing, whether we like it or not, so let's let it change. Let's ride that. Let's listen to the voices that have the stage now, and let's let those old systems that are being opposed by Black Lives Matter, let's let them burn to the ground.
Yeah, I like that you directly addressed police brutality, like in the first set of lyrics. Like there's a sickness in the street, and the cops on the beat have a sickness in their hearts right from the start. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I guess it's a kind of a mild way of saying ACAB,
Yeah.
right? All cops are bastards. And I think it really reflects, as socially and politically conscious as I like to think I am, I obviously don't think of the world in the way that people with less privilege than me do, right? So when this was all thrust into the center stage, I realized that I hadn't even really fully comprehended just what the police state means, like the fact that we have officers collecting revenue at traffic stops effectively at gunpoint is fucking ludicrous. But I probably hadn't really thought that hard about it, and so I guess a lot of those lyrics are me confronting my privilege and really putting it out there that, like, there's a lot of things that I don't know, but it's time for me to step it up and start thinking harder about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you see the documentary that came out recently on the police brutality in Calgary specifically?
No, but I read about it, and I heard there was the officer tried to have an injunction so that they wouldn't show it at Cuff.
Yeah.
Let me just say that Calgary Underground Film Festival is amazing, and it doesn't surprise me that they selected that film.
Yeah, I watched it. It was so hard to watch. They showed footage of things you don't want to see, but things that you have to see. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like, me as a privileged person, I have only seen a very limited amount of police brutality, but to see it on that level in my city was just, it was unreal. So I don't remember the name of that film, but shout out to the Calgary Underground Film Festival for putting that out there.
Absolutely.
I liked when you, in the song Let It Burn, at the end, when you're saying that when the people take to the streets and everyone that you meet reminds us that we live in a world together. I think that's a really important line. Can you tell me what inspired you to write that?
It really comes back to our point earlier in the conversation about ignorance not being an excuse anymore. It never has been, but it's less of an excuse than it ever has been now. There's no it's in our face, it's when people take to the street and are protesting in huge numbers, the death of somebody who died across the continent, and the sociological implications of that, and it's just thrust into the consciousness like that. You kind of have to get on board and get on the right side of history, or you're going to be remembered as a Nazi, essentially. People who are fighting for equality are not fighting to marginalize anybody. They're fighting against that, So when you get the pushback from the privileged members of our society, I think it's completely unwarranted, and they're not accepting the blatant and simple message that we're all in this together and we need to start fucking acting like it.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't have said it any better myself. Like, it is an everyone problem. And just because some people hold privilege in the situation, like, it's an especially them problem because that privilege was taken from someone else.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So I would like to move on to the next song I'd like to talk about. Pandermobile. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's me.
And so when you wrote that song about the UCP, what inspired you? What lit your fire?
So I seem to write a lot of my songs in bands, whether it be like on tour or like at work. So I was like, and I'm a third year electrician, so I work on a service, like for my company. I work on our service department, and being in a blue collar work environment, I'm constantly surrounded by conservatives and stuff. And the guy I was working for, he was kind of going off about whatever, Jason Kenney or something like that. And I was like, hey man, you voted for him, I didn't, right? And it kind of got me thinking about like how this dude just friggin' panders to like conservative politicians like all around the world just pander to like middle class families that are just like fed, like spoon fed to believe all this nonsense, and it just like turns our province into complete fucking garbage. And I was like upset about it, and you know, I got buddies that aren't working. You know, Jason Kenney's supposed to make this economy boom again. You know, like, where's that? It just went more down and stuff. You know, it just went down more. And so it's just kind of like coming from like I guess a working class point of view or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Some of it's from the perspective of conservatives kind of like starting to realize. And it's funny because the more I like go to work and like talk to all my coworkers and stuff like that, the more they're like, I don't trust this Jason Kenney government and all this stuff. And I'm like, yes, like that's what I've been saying for the last 2 years, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, welcome to the party.
Yeah, like
there was a lot of warning signs there.
Yeah, like come on, man. So yeah, the whole song basically was like about that stupid friggin' Dodge truck he has. Like, you friggin', like, what do you need that for? You're a friggin' shitty politician.
I've never seen it.
Car, man.
What?
Oh, you haven't? There's photos of like he's like got a cowboy hat on. He's like hanging out the window, and it's like a big ass blue Dodge like pickup truck. You haven't seen that? It's got like UCP or whatever UCP signs all over it. And
no, but I'm gonna look it up right after this.
Oh, dude, it's a complete pandermobile. That's what it is.
Oh.
Like, he just bought it because he's like, oh, like moving to Alberta might be the you know, premier. Got to get a truck.
Right.
Yeah.
In Alberta.
It's kind of like when he puts on like a high-vis kind of construction gear at job sites that he's speaking at. You know he's not working in it.
Oh,
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You know he's not helping anyone move either. It's not like he's helping anyone move with that truck.
That's true.
It's like, yo, Jason Kenney, can you help me with I gotta move this bed. No.
You don't think like Chandro or Lagrange calls up like, hey Jay, buddy Jay
Kenney?
Just
Oh my goodness.
got some hay bales to move.
Yeah. I got some pipes that need to be cleared off a site, bud. You want to come down and help me you yeet these boys off?
Yeah, I wonder. He's probably not bringing those pipes to the Keystone XL or whatever.
Yeah, no.
In that truck.
No, he's not even driving up there with that.
I can't wait to look at this truck. Maybe I'll like put a picture.
Oh
up.
yeah, no, I saw it and I was like, oh, you fucking guy. Like,
So that
I
was
really dislike him so much.
me too. I mean, and so that was the inspiration to Pandermobile.
Yeah, sort of.
And so, a little bit.
A little bit.
So at the beginning of the song, you start like, my body is broken. There's spit in my eye again. So it, like, I think you're saying like, I feel disrespected by this government. Feeling mistreated. I've fallen prone to power trips. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's just basically kind of like what I said, you know, like coming from a conservative's point of view where it's like, I voted for this guy to make my life better and it's not any better, right? And a lot of people aren't working anymore because of you, right? So
Yeah.
it was kind of from that, you know.
Yeah. And like you do talk about it, like buried in debt without a paycheck.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that the chorus of this song has been stuck in my head all week. Just this,
nice.
this province makes it
I'm
harder
so
to live.
sorry.
No, it's okay, because it's true. Like
Yeah.
every time I look at, like, it seems like almost daily. Sometimes it's weekly, but just sometimes the UCP just throws a hatchet in there, and it takes you like a day to even process it. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know. It's like it gets harder and harder. Like, more like every morning you wake up and you just say bummer. Like, bummer is your first word to come out of your mouth just because of a government.
Yeah.
Like, fucking bummer. Like, that sucks.
Yes. And you touch on in here how you say like it's only getting colder outside. And so I think that's important, especially with what happened in Edmonton when they closed down both of the camps that were there to help out the people without fixed addresses. Like it is getting colder outside, and the government is making it harder to live, and there's no extra funding. This government does not want to fund any social programs whatsoever, especially new ones. So, like in Alberta, it is a serious issue that if you don't have a place to go and there is no shelters, like it is getting colder outside. So I did really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I think I wrote that. I think I wrote that line to be in a whole completely different song. But I liked it so much because it's like layered. You know, it's got all these double meanings and stuff like that. And it gets fucking cold in Alberta, so right, like
It's true.
it's brutal, man.
It was an uncomfortable laugh for me. That wasn't a real laugh. For the people that are listening. Yeah, so like you end it by saying you don't hurt like us, so what's your excuse? And I think that is really important because it speaks to the privilege within our society that like if you don't hurt like other people, is that kind of where you're going with it? Like if you have the privilege, then you're not going to see it.
Yeah, it's I think it was something about career politicians. I read an article on career politicians, and it was like that's just your job. Like you fuck over a province, you could just move on, right? Like there's really no like backlash for what you do. You can do anything and just move on, right? Like so it's kind of about that.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, the UCP was like, we're going to remove the deficit, and then they doubled it. Like it's double now. Thank you for that.
And then you can just walk away, and then blame it on someone else, right?
Yeah, it's the NDP's fault.
That's a really cool point in the song too. It's my favorite part because the perspective kind of changes, right? It's like the first couple of verses and choruses are personal reflections and about the protagonist's experience with all of this. But at the end of the song, when we're getting ready to end the song, he turns his gaze directly to Kenny and sort of addresses him, right? And these career politicians who don't live in the world that even we as privileged people live in. He said it best when he called them career politicians. It's like Jason Kenney's not working on the pipelines. He's not doing anything with that truck. And I love that part in the song.
Yeah. And, I think that Jason Kenney's attempt to revive an economy that, like, I know we're going to need oil and gas for the next however long, but to I think he gave like $4.8 billion to try and restart it. The
first time.
Yeah, it didn't work.
And last fall, there was a big another.
Yeah, there was like
handful of $20 billion recently.
Oh wow. Yeah, and then the war room, which it actually took me a full month to realize that it was not. It was about the oil and gas companies. It was just to deal with the misconceptions that had to come with oil and gas. It was not actually like it was against the war on oil and gas.
It's a propaganda machine. You should see the stuff that they put out. It's incredible.
Yeah, everybody that's listening, you should check that out. It's important to know.
Yeah, I'm addressing the royal we.
Yes.
Here.
Editorial.
Actually, I stole a little bit of that footage for a video, but I probably shouldn't admit to that. Whoops.
That's okay. It's on the down low.
Yeah. We've got a very certain demographic listening to the People's Revolution podcast, I think.
It's true. It's very true.
Those kind of people.
Yeah. And so the last song that is a Wake Up Call. And so who wrote Wake Up Call?
I wrote Wake Up Call. Spencer talking here. And it really is like it's really I think a great counterpart to Tyler's song Pandermobile, because he takes a very personal stance. How is the UCP's budget, their government, affecting me as a worker living in Alberta? Whereas Wake Up Call is more of I'm not going to say academic because that sounds so boring, but it's like a kind of a factual summarization of the budget, essentially, the policies, and the fact that, like you mentioned earlier in the conversation about Panormobile, Julia, I wrote that song right when he gave that 4 point whatever billion dollars to the oil companies, who then up and left the country. They took the money, they paid out their shareholders, they created 0 jobs with it, and some of them left or merged with multinationals in the States, right? And so, like, at that point, it's just like the writing's on the wall, people. Like, look, I know they're promising you milk and honey, and they say it's going to trickle down, you know? But I mean, Reagan and Thatcher were on about that 40 years ago, and we're still waiting for it, right? Like, they don't create jobs with these huge corporate bailouts. And the evidence is right there. Like, when he dropped his budget, and then I can't remember who it was. Was it Husky? Whoever it was left the country. Like, right after that, as an affront. Like, is it like they don't give a shit? Mm-hmm. And then he's talking about austerity measures to make up for the lost tax dollars, right? So he's cutting social funding. He's cutting AISH, which is the disability supplement. For anyone who doesn't know, that's how people with disabilities survive in our province, is with AISH. So he cut that down. And since then he's destroyed a lot of workplace safety regulations, overtime pay. So he's putting the burden of those huge corporate bailouts on us, on the vulnerable, but also just on regular working folks. And a lot of these working folks who voted for him believed that they could get a piece of that billion-dollar pie. They've got this. They've been gaslit by conservative politicians for 40, 50 years about this trickle-down economics thing, and they still believe that the American dream, or the whatever Canadian dream, the colonial dream, is real. And if you work hard, you can, build yourself up to it like a billionaire. But it's just not going to happen. And the writing's on the wall. So that's sort of what I wrote that song to be about. But I think at the end of the day, I had 3 verses and a chorus that were very they're all from the same perspective, and it's at the end of the day, I almost felt like it could feel a little bit stale. I felt like there was something that needed to happen with that song. We had this little bit of a breakdown in the studio. We were like, what are we going to put in this breakdown? And then we thought about, like, well, maybe I guess we could, like, do the regular punk thing and just find a press conference that Kenny's speaking at and cut the audio out of that and put it into the breakdown of the song. But we were in Vancouver, and we have some great friends there who work on the ground and see firsthand the effects of lack of social funding. So we contacted Sarah Heshington from Alien Boys, who works on the ground there, and they were incredible. We said, could you come in and maybe sing something in this little breakdown, maybe write a little verse or something like that? And the song needs something. And not only did they provide this incredible lived experience for the kind of thing that we were talking about, but they just destroyed the vocals in like 1 or 2 takes in the studio and really added a really valuable lived experience there that, well, obviously I don't have, I'm reading the newspaper, and I'm not working in the fields that are specifically impacted by the UCP's policies.
Yeah, because she works in the opioid epidemic. Is that what you were saying before?
That's right. Sarah works in with vulnerable populations in Vancouver who are affected by the opioid crisis.
Yeah, that's really important.
Which is here on the ground too, right? And so when social programming is cut, the first people to feel the brunt of that are the marginalized, such as addicts and other vulnerable people, like anybody who's marginalized is going to feel that first.
Yeah, and that's definitely a thing in Alberta too. Like, safe consumption sites are not the UCP's government's favorite thing. But I think it's because they don't understand why they're necessary. Like, we can't use abstinence-based programs. It doesn't work for everybody, and you can't just force people into a box and tell them to quit.
It's really important to gain Sarah's perspective, because it kind of blows it out of the water in a way that, right? Sarah's from BC. We're from Alberta. We're speaking specifically to Alberta politics and the UCP government, but it doesn't end there. It's, so the UCP government is a product of this capitalist or corporate feudalist sort of society, right, that we're living in. There's a reason that they exist, and that reason is to uphold the systems that are already in place in our society. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's important that we don't excuse one party because the UCP has been the worst, right? And so, I guess something important about Sarah's perspective in that song is the feds, right? So Trudeau's war on drugs is obviously comparable in the way that it affects marginalized populations, the same as Kenny's worker policies and corporate bailouts. So, like, as much as we hate the UCP, we're not going to endorse another party, because at the end of the day, the politicians are all working to uphold the systems that have been created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, I think, the most important point. Like, you can't keep fixing something that's broken. It's never going to work if it's broken.
Exactly. That's why we say let it burn. Mm-hmm. Let's like look at all the community initiatives that have come out of these extremely trying times. Camp Pikawawin, the Bear Clan, right? These are people with their boots on the ground, personally addressing the problems that they see. And this is decentralized support. This is non-governmental. Like, I don't know, like, I used to be like, what's the Against Me lyric? I was a teenage anarchist. I was, like a shitty drunk punk as a teenager, and like, yeah, anarchy's so cool. And then I, kind of got older, and I was like, no, wait, socialism's the way to go. We need to affect the governments. But now at 34, I'm kind of back to this decentralized, like, look, if Pikawawin and Bear Clan can fucking handle it, then what the hell is Trudeau and Kenny? What are they there for? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Right. The people are doing it because the governments are not. Same song. Like, I think that Laura says, like, there's no war but class war.
That's right.
And it's true.
And what does Marx say? Class struggle is a political struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you fix fix the political system, then you can fix the struggle, but you can't continue to just uphold the struggle just to make sure no one's drowning and just, you know what I mean? Like, the system is still there suppressing people. And I think that's the most important part to address. Like, something that was made so long ago by white guys for white guys does not work for all people. And I don't know why people don't get that yet. But we'll get there.
You know, the thing about it is, it's not even really working for white guys anymore. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, you know, hetero white males just don't want to admit that, but it's actually not working for any of us except for the 1% who continue to benefit off it while poverty margins increase and inequality gets deeper and worse.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Thank you. Tyler, I know I haven't spoken to you very much, but is there anything that you want to add to this narrative about the UCP or just the injustices that are going on right now that are inspiring your lyrics?
Well, I don't know. You might want to ask Mikey. He hasn't really said anything.
I meant Mikey. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I'm so sorry.
That's all good.
Sorry, what was the question? Yeah, you started asking Tyler, and then I stopped paying attention.
Just if there is anything that you'd like to add to this narrative, either about the UCP, what inspired any of the lyrics, or
Yeah, I think that Tyler and Spencer really nailed a lot of the main points that I would make as well, and taking it further to, like, this, when Spencer mentioned Trudeau's government and what they're not doing right, and yeah, I take it to that level as well, where all governments, they're all corrupt in their own way, and they're not here for us, they're here for them, and they're here for money.
Shareholders, right? They're corporate interests.
Yeah, and that's what's wrong, and that's what's broken. I've pretty much lost faith in all politicians. Yeah, some are better than others, but you know, a two-headed dragon is still a two-headed dragon, even if one of the faces smiles at you. So it's hard to ever be able to trust a government. But then you get the real corrupt ones like Jason Kenney, who all the things people point out ahead of time, like about his homophobia and the shit that he pulled there, and it's like, how can you possibly want to support someone who clearly doesn't care about the greater good? He just cares about what's good for him. Mm-hmm. That's a problem with people like him who get to power, which is most people who get to power. And like Spencer said, you know, it's that 1% that are really marginalizing the rest of the world, right? I mean, yeah, as a white male who has a steady job, I still have it pretty good, but I don't doubt for a second that I don't take it for granted, and I don't doubt for a second that like, it could be better for everybody, right? With just a little more accountability from the leaders. So, yeah, I don't have any lyrics on this album, but stay tuned for the next one.
Yes. Definitely. Cool. Well, I really appreciated this conversation, like, from everything from, I think it's really important for everybody to be having the police brutality conversation right now. And I think that people in Alberta, and I think it's so important to be aware of what's happening with the UCP, especially, like, they are wording things sometimes, like with AISH, they're like, oh, we're not cutting AISH, but like, yes, you are. With the parks, they're like, oh, we're not selling the parks, but like, you are. And you're putting coal mine companies in a few of them, which is very, very concerning, and everyone should be very on top of that.
Well, and that's just it. Like, with their rhetoric, they're gaslighting the population, and that's why people are still voting for them. So it's time for us to start having those awkward conversations at the Thanksgiving dinner table with the racist uncle who's a working class guy who's being fucked by the UCP and just won't admit it, right? And so I think that's essentially at the core, that's what our songs are about, right? Because we're speaking to people who listen to our music, and a lot of those people are people like us. And it's like, okay, folks, it's time to stop being gaslit. Like, look at the writings on the wall. And you're right, like, the rhetoric, they say one thing and do another, but there's people who believe what they say and aren't looking at the evidence.
Yeah. Or, you know what, there's even people who work in oil and gas that I've pointed out, like, look, see us, like, say goodbye to your overtime. And they're like, oh, well, you know, it's okay. They're trying their best. But if the NDP government did that, anyone in oil and gas would lose their marbles.
Yeah, absolutely.
It matters what government takes advantage of them. Because
It's really
they know
interesting, though,
conservative, it's okay.
I mean, I know only a handful. Obviously, we all isolate ourselves in our own social bubbles or whatever. So I only know a few people who work in oil and gas, but I know that they're waking up to it as well. Like, there's a whole subsection of that industry who are their small businesses are staying afloat, cleaning up abandoned well sites, right? So, like, I think and I hope that, like, you just can't turn away anymore from the reality of those policies.
Yeah, I really hope that people listening to this interview, I know a lot of people around our age are a little disinterested in voting, but in order to make sure that the UCP does not continue to fuck us, we have to vote in municipals next year. And that is maybe something that not a lot of people have considered, but, like, dear people listening, please consider voting in your next municipal election. Anyone but the UCP.
Yeah.
Please and thank
I've
you.
always felt kind of weird about voting, but I think municipal is where you can effect the most change with the simple action of casting a ballot.
Yeah, as a fellow punk, I've always felt very weird about voting too, and I'll be very realistic. I only recently started voting because I agree with you guys. I don't think that voting in the lesser of two evils is very helpful, but at this point, like, if we
It's
don't...
about mitigating damage.
Yeah, like, I will vote NDP because of I don't want coal mines in my provincial parks, and that's a really fucked up reason to vote, but here I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, is there any final words, especially, like, Mikey, I know we didn't get a lot of conversation time, but is there any final words you want to tell the people? Put you on the spot.
I just think it's important to always hold yourself and others around you accountable. Don't put up with any bullshit. If someone says something racist, call them a racist. Right? Don't hold back. The time for holding back is over. It was over a long time ago. I mean, you look back at the first time police violence was really broadcast was Rodney King, and it's not like that was the first time it happened, right? And it took until the death of George Floyd, which again isn't the first time we've seen a black man die by the hands of a police officer on video camera, but this time because we were all locked down together, everybody saw it. You couldn't get away from it. So I think it's important to learn from that and keep on these racist fucks.
Yes.
And push them back so that they go back into hiding, along with Trump when he's done being the idiot that he is, steering the world in the wrong direction.
Yeah, once Trump's gone, the permission slips to be a racist asshole are gone, and like go back to hiding.
Hopefully it'll turn things back. We'll see. I don't know. Once you open the floodgates, it's gonna be hard to close them. So that's why you got to keep on telling people that they're racist and to check themselves and check yourself.
Yes. Yeah, always check yourself. Check yourself first. Cool. Well, thank you guys. Again, their self-titled EP came out on December 11th. It's called Quit It. There's an exclamation point at the end. It's going to be at the bottom of the screen. And yeah, that's all I got.
Adios, comrades.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate you.
World.
Got